Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. It's 8 o'clock. It's Sunday, December 10th. You're on the Bible Forum. We've got a whole lot of stuff to talk about tonight, not the least of which is how awfully cold it is here in Charleston, South Carolina. This is not what I signed up for. They're talking about 20-some degrees when it gets to be the middle of the night here this evening. That's not something I'm looking forward to. Maybe some of you like it, but it's not really my cup of tea. Those who usually tap into the Facebook page are not going to be able to see anything quite for a while. I gotta get this. I set it up to start at 8 o'clock when I came back from church, and I looked and got everything squared away. The scheduling had all disappeared off the screen, and I spent several minutes pondering what that could mean. In the end, I concluded it was better to reset it than to have nothing happen, so I went in and I reset it. When that happens, it puts everything out about 15 minutes. You can't just start streaming from the Facebook page when you want to, like we can here at Ustream. So that stream won't start until about 10 minutes after 8, and that's if I remember to get over there and start doing it. Anyway, we want to welcome you to the Bible Forum. We've got a whole list of things that we're going to talk about tonight. There's a number of issues that are percolating in our culture that I think we need to discuss, not the least of which, clearly, is what's going on in Israel. But we're going to look at the House of Representatives. We're going to look at the Senate, some of the things going on there in Washington. We're going to look at the border situation here. The president down in where was he? Alabama? No, Montgomery. He went to Alabama. He was in Florida, Pensacola, I think, someplace. And the things that he said there. And then when he did get to Alabama, Mississippi. Yeah, Mississippi. I guess he went to the new museum there. Anyway, the things that happened there and some other kinds of things around the world. Before we get too far down that road, I want to encourage you to use our BibleForum.net website. Go there, see what's going on. Check the blogs. There are other blogs. You can go to thelivinggodly.net. There's links to all of these. Biblicalcounseling.net. You can go to theviewfromzoar.com. And I believe there's another one. I've forgotten what it is. But there's also the Bible Institute. That's at BibleInstituteofCharleston.org. And sign up to take some courses. It's not as complicated as you might think. It's more than church. It's more than Sunday school. It's not as much as seminary. And it's for your information. You don't have to take it for credit. You don't have to take any tests. You don't have to write any papers, answer any questions. You get emails. I send you videos every couple of weeks. They're about 45 minutes long, something in that neighborhood. You can watch it whenever you want. You can watch it 2 or 3 times. You can make notes. I would encourage you to do that. We're working our way through the 10 basic doctrines of the church. We're up through the halfway point. I think we've got 6 of them done, trying to get to the other 4. But if you're just starting now, you won't get ahead of me. We want you to be a part of that. The Church of Jesus Christ is woefully ignorant. I don't mean that unkindly, but there's just things we don't know. Anyway, we're going to get started. This is actually, 2 Sundays before Christmas. Next week is the 17th and then the 24th. So we're only about two and a half weeks out. I ran across a well, I guess it was an email somebody had sent. There's a list of 10 things here. They're called Top 10 Politically Correct Christmas Carols. And I thought I'd read them to you just for interest's sake. Number 10 is "O Holiday Tree." Can't say the word Christmas. Number 9, "Have yourself a merry little day of winter." Number 8, "Frosty the Snow Person." Number 7, "Chestnuts roasting on a safely contained, continuously monitored, eco-friendly, non-toxic outdoor fire, for which I do have a permit." Number 6, "Higher power, rest ye merry gentlemen." Number 5, "Grandma allegedly got run over by an unidentified non-human perpetrator." Number 4, "Deck the halls with boughs of unendangered foliage, if office policy permits." Number 3, "Hark the herald mythical winged creatures sing." Number 2, "I saw Mommy greeting Santa Claus with a purely platonic expression of inoffensive mutual affection." And number 1, "I'll be home for a short period of time in December." It's supposed to be funny. It's not. This is where we're going. This is kind of where we're headed. And if you paid any attention to the news this week, some of the scandals that are percolating around, it doesn't take very much for you to realize that things are a lot worse off than maybe we knew. But maybe we did know. Maybe we didn't see it on television, we didn't hear about it from our politicians and so forth, but we kind of knew this was going on. If we work in an office, men and women together, if there's a hierarchy, power hierarchy, just human nature, when you watch how people who are otherwise dignified, lawyers and that sort of folks, they have very dignified offices, but you see them out of the office, you see them down at the watering hole, or you hear them at a football game, or you go there and you realize that the culture is kind of rough. It's getting a lot more rugged, a lot more harsh in many ways, and a lot more sexually loose. The songs, the people singing them, and the way they dress, the Twitter universe, the YouTube channels, some of the things that you have access to on a regular basis show you these young adults, and they show them to you in all their glory. And they're not always nice people. They may be when they're in church, but it doesn't necessarily translate to outside of that system. I want to see if I can start streaming the Facebook page before I start telling you this story about the president and Jerusalem, which is something that's really big in the news today, and I want to comment on. I'm trying to make sure that my timing is right. It looks like I could probably do this. I really don't know. It used to show me a screen that this stuff would start working on, and then I could click and say, yeah, go. And it hasn't done that tonight, so I don't know if Facebook has changed or it's me. But if you're just tuning in to Facebook, this is the Bible Forum, and we're just getting started. We haven't really talked about anything yet. But I do want to talk to you about our president, our beloved president, Donald Trump, and the comments that he's making regarding Israel's capital city, which is Jerusalem. Now, I received 2 emails this week from Jewish missionaries. I'd sent out an email, just an advertisement for the show, and I'd made a comment relative to President Trump moving the ambassador. What do they say? Mine just went blank. Moving that whole facility to Jerusalem, and I called it. I said what Donald Trump was doing was establishing Jerusalem as Israel's capital city, or something to that effect. And one missionary wrote and said, no, that's not what he did. All he's doing is, moving the ambassadors there and the building, whatever, the consulate there. And we have to be very careful. And I got an email from another Jewish missionary who said, thank you for mentioning it, for saying it that way, because that's basically what's going on. We were just scared to death to say stuff like this. We don't put embassies in outlying cities in Russia. We put it in the capital. They put their capital, their embassies in our capital city. And so for the United States to say we're putting our embassy in Jerusalem, what we're really telling the world is we consider that their capital. And that's the hubbub. But George Bush started this thing. Obama was in on it. They both wanted to see this happen. They kept putting it off. Every 6 months they had to sign a document saying we're still going to do this, keep the money available and that sort of thing. This isn't new, but in this environment it's apparently very emotional. Zechariah chapter 12. Zechariah is one of the last of the Old Testament prophets. In the Old Testament you can read about Zechariah. In chapter 12, verse 2, he says, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Now he's talking about end times scenario. He's talking about the great tribulation. He's talking about that time when Jesus is going to return. And Jerusalem is going to be under siege. People will be dying like crazy. The whole world, it seems, will be coming against her. The Encyclopedia Britannica traces the earliest human settlements in this city we call Jerusalem. They see them on a hill a little to the southeast of where it is now. The findings, the artifacts, the various things come from the late Copper Age and early Bronze Age, which puts it about 3000 BC. Excavations have revealed that a settlement existed on a site south of the Temple Mount, and a massive town wall was found just above the Gihon Spring, which determined the location of this ancient settlement. The name, known in its earliest form, was Urushalim. It's probably of Western Semitic origin and probably means foundation of Shalem, meaning God. The city and its earliest rulers, the Egyptians, are mentioned in the Egyptian execration texts. Now we're all familiar with that, I'm sure, but just to refresh your memory, this is between 1900 and 1800 BC. Mentioned again in the 14th century in something called the Tel El Amarna correspondence, which contains a message from the city's ruler requiring his sovereign's help against the invading Hapiru, or Habiru. It depends on who you read, how they spell it. A biblical narrative mentions the meeting of the Canaanite Melchizedek, said to be the king of Salem, Jerusalem, where the Hebrew patriarch Abraham paid him tithes. A later episode in the biblical text mentions another king, Adonizedek, who headed an Amorite coalition and was vanquished by Joshua. According to biblical accounts, Jerusalem, which is on the frontier between Benjamin and Judah, standing in the middle between these two tribal territories, inhabited with a mixture of people, a mixed population, described as Jebusites. How this city was captured by David. David was founder of the joint kingdom of Israel and Judah. He put these two together, and the city then became the Jewish kingdom's capital. Now, all of that brings us up to 1000 BC. I tell you all of this to lay the foundation, the groundwork for a later discussion we'll have during the show, demonstrating that when the Arabs come along and say, this is our city, or at least Jerusalem does not belong to Israel, history seems to say it does. That Israel was very much connected to this city for 2,000 or 3,000 years before there was something called Muslims. We'll talk about it later. Before that, I want to share with you a number of things that have popped up this week in the news. No long drawn-out affair, just you need to know this if you haven't already. Seen it, understand it. But there was a meeting. It's not really a meeting. There was a trip that was made by the First Lady of this country, President Trump's wife, accompanied by what is referred to as the Second Lady, which is the wife of our Vice President. And these women got on a plane, and with their entourage, they went to Texas this week. They were there to encourage the first responders from the recent hurricane that ravaged that area. And they bought lunch for the press pool. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, but the press made a big deal about it. They thought it was just a nice thing. And other people kind of commented on it the same way. And I say this is a class act. The U.S. House of Representatives this past week, I believe, it could have been a little bit earlier, passed what is referred to as an interstate concealed carry permit law. You have a permit to carry your weapon in your state of South Carolina. You have to make sure there are reciprocal agreements with the other states around if you want to leave your state carrying your weapon. I have family in Mississippi. From North Carolina when I was there, and here in South Carolina, I could not get to Mississippi legally with my gun. Georgia and South Carolina did not have a reciprocal agreement. I guess I could have gone up maybe through Tennessee, I'm not sure, and come down the other side, but I want to go through Georgia. So I got an Arizona license. All I had to do was fill out the form, send the paperwork that verified that I actually had this thing, and pay $50, and they sent me. And now I have my Arizona license. So when I go to see my daughter and her family, I can go through Georgia legally. The U.S. House of Representatives is saying you can go to any state in the Union. Now, if you're a gun carrier and you're paying attention, you realize there's about a dozen states in this country ain't going to let you carry your gun through their state. You pretty much have to lock it up someplace and then go to Massachusetts or New York or New Jersey and pick it up on the way out. I have a friend who did that. He went to a pawn shop. He pawned his gun. And then he went into New York and up into New England where he wanted to go. And a week or so later, on his way back out, he stopped and he bought his gun back. That's the kind of nonsense we've had to go through because some of these states just don't want to deal. They don't want you to have a gun, period. In Massachusetts, police officers can't carry weapons if they're not Massachusetts police officers. They have to mail their weapons to the police department in the town where they're going, pick them up when they get there, because they're usually going to get somebody, either get them out of jail, on a court order to come back for trial or whatever they're doing, and they have their gun. But then from there, they have to go straight to the airplane or the bus. They have to get out of their state. They're not allowed to carry it. It's just that silly. Well, the House has passed this law, and we're all just sort of waiting to see if the Senate will ratify it. What do you think? No, not going to happen. You paying any attention to what's going on down at the border? We're not hearing a whole lot about it. We hear, we want the wall, and they've got all these, 10 or 11 or 12 or one of these samples put up, and they're making their decision about what kind of wall they're going to build. But without a wall, just since Donald Trump has been president, border crossings are down 45%. What made the difference? Well, we're being told that the Border Patrol is now permitted to do their job. Haven't been able to do that for the last 8 years. They're now permitted to do their job. Border crossings drop 45%. Amazing, isn't it? President Trump went to the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson, Mississippi this week in honor of its grand opening. He made a nice speech. He toured the facilities. It was a classic what presidents do kind of event. But the noted black Democrats, many of which marched in Selma, were part of the whole civil rights movement. These noted black Democrats boycotted the event. They'll go later and they'll make their entrance and they'll get the press and all that, but they wouldn't be there with the Donald. Now imagine if the tables were turned. Imagine if Republicans would not have turned up for something Obama did, or Bill Clinton, or any Democrat. What would the media be saying? Have you heard anything about this? We say it's not so, but racism is alive and well in the United States. But it's not the white folks who are the major practicers. The man was invited. Where is your common decency? Can you not set that aside in honor of these people, some of whom lost their lives? It doesn't make sense. We've got about 8 or 10 wildfires tearing up Southern California coast right now, somewhere between Camp Pendleton in the south and Oxnard in the north, all along that coast. They're being fueled by the Santa Ana winds. Every fall, they call them Santa Ana wind, they blow off the high desert, and they bring a tremendous amount of dry air, creating, as you might imagine, dry conditions, which makes it very difficult to fight these fires. People moving to California not being aware of the Santa Ana struggle. My own daughter was there. Her husband was going to Bible college in Southern California. They drove out there at the end of August, 1st September, whatever it was, and sometime in the middle of October at a party, she mentioned to the hostess how that she just really felt weak, always felt like she was going to pass out, didn't know what was going on. And the woman asked her, "Are you drinking water?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And she explained the Santa Ana winds. Every fall this happens. The warm, dry air blows through, and it just sucks moisture out of everything, including you. And so she had a couple of glasses of water, and she said, "I felt so much better." You have to know these things. Californians deal with a number of natural issues most of us never see or even hear about. Now we hear about earthquakes when they pop up in California, But did you realize that Californians experience more than 20 earthquakes a day? Most of them don't hear, feel, or are aware of any of them. But a December 8th report here this year, 2017, said over the past 24 hours, California has been hit by 46 earthquakes. That's about twice the normal daily number, much of which has shaken the place in the southern part of the state. The situation has a higher than normal potential for a mega quake. And folks who monitor these things are getting very, very concerned. They don't feel them always because they are way down deep. But the mantle is moving. And we've seen pictures of it. They'll show it to you. And how when the mantle starts to move, one rides up over the other. And the earthquakes are when they get stuck and break loose. And they just move a little bit. Yeah, well, they destroy a lot when that happens. Moving over across the pond, as they say, over in Europe, we hear a lot about Germany. And Germany has opened their doors to Arab immigrants, and they are struggling under the weight of this, but they have yet to be willing to cry uncle. In fact, they had at one point a year or so ago taken to contacting people who had summer homes, vacation homes, and telling them, don't bother taking your vacation because we're going to put immigrants in your house. They can't do that here, but I guess they can in Germany, and Scandinavian countries going through the same. Well, this week we learned that Germany has just agreed to pay immigrants $3,275 if they will just go home. Huh? An experiment? Dumb. Didn't work, did it? Over in China, the International Christian Concern Group is reporting that on the morning of November 21, more than 100 government officers in uniform raided what is called the North Gate Catholic Church in the city of Xi'an. They tore religious posters off the walls. They shattered religious icons and statues, injured 4 elderly people who were defending the church. Every once in a while we hear how that China is becoming more Western. They're lightening up on things. No, they're not. And you got to realize that China is a big place. It's divided up into prefects and counties, I guess, what are provinces and that sort of thing. And while the leadership may be softening their tone in one sense, the outlying provincial leaders, not so much anymore. Pray for the folks in China. Now, I know these were Catholics, and you've heard me before. The Roman Catholic Church's official position, official doctrine, is one that denies what the Bible teaches about being a Christian. But what we learn usually is that in countries like China and other places where people are pretty much cut off, much of what they believe is truth. You never quite know. We are living in a highly technological age. What hath technology done? Observers now believe that artificial intelligence may soon create a false reality, a reality that is indistinguishable from anything that might be real. They warn us that these advancements in graphic manipulation serve as a warning to humanity. When we see that they can do something that is just really marvelous, and in the movies they can create things, it looks real. We go, wow. No, we should go, ooh, uh-oh. The article is talking about graphics firm the graphics firm that calls themselves NVIDIA. NVIDIA just recently released the results of what they call their image-to-image translation technology. This is technology that can take a photograph of a winter scene, transform that winter scene into a summer scene, and do it with completely indistinguishable results. You will not know that this is not the same scene, only in different, here's winter, here's summer, same scene. I put some up on my website. You'll see it in the carousel. A representative said, we present high quality image translation results on various challenging unsupervised image translation tasks, including street scene image translation, animal image translation, and face image translation. We also apply the proposed framework to domain adaptation and achieve state-of-the-art performance on benchmark data sets. I have no idea what that means, but you do. In technology, we're seeing a system, a circumstance that is creating a reality we will be hard-pressed to identify. Is it real? Is it not real? And it isn't limited to photography. It works the same with video. And it's not just these outdoor scenes, these stationary scenes. It works with animals. It works with people, presumably. If it works with an animal, why would it not work with you? And the underlying or overriding statement is, goodbye reality. We're going to be living in Never Never Land, and we won't even know it. I can envision a day when I'm old, you understand, but I can envision a day when I would just shut down everything I've got, stop being on the web at all, unless it's through some form that isn't connected to me. And I can imagine that people who get burnt by some of this, think about law cases, court trials, things you won't even know if the evidence is real or manufactured. You say, well, there'll be technology that will show which is which. Yeah, perhaps. But until that happens, we're really victimized here. It's getting worse. One day, they'll be able to make a statue talk, and you'll believe that it's human. So how do you know that? Bible talks about it. Stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about how Islam is responding to this whole Jerusalem as capital city thing. Stay with us. We'll be right back.